Did you remember the 5th of November? Do you see how much change has been brought about by the Million Mask March? No, I don't actually see any change either. Did recreating that scene from V for Vendetta become all that productive? Did it really create all the change that people thought it was going to be? Or did it turn out to be exactly the same thing as protests always turn out to be? Absolutely nothing, creating absolutely nothing, and changing absolutely nothing. Well, I'll tell you what did happen. A lot of people walked around in anonymous masks, or probably Guy Fawkes masks, and the FBI laughed at them. In fact, there's been very little reports of police activity surrounding it, which would mean that largely even the police, the state oppressive apparatus, didn't even particularly care that there was going to be a protest. Do you see it now? Do you see all the pointlessness of this? And how this doesn't actually achieve anything, and that the whole idea of anonymous, essentially outside of the internet, doesn't actually do anything. But I can already hear the detractors now. What we can do is wait for Kasama Project to come out with a post about it. What does this mean for revolution today? What does this mean about the state of protesting? What effect did this have? What does this demonstrate to us? Well, I can answer the question for you, Eli. Absolutely nothing. I can answer that for you, Kasama people. Absolutely nothing. The same as it is every other time this kind of thing happens. Now, I don't mean to be so down on the idea of protesting. I'm going to get a lot of people saying things like, oh, people actually stood up, they paid attention, and they went out there and they did something, and you're just dumping on all that because they didn't do it the way you think it should be done. Well, let me answer you. It is not about the fact that it was not done the way that I think it should be done. There's a lot of ways you can do it in which would be effective. That's the point here. It is not effective. We have had bigger protests where people stood up and said something, where they have paid attention and gone out and gotten media attention and stood forth and said things on a much larger scale and with much more meaning and a hell of a lot more solidarity. And in the end, it accomplished nothing. People have to get it through their heads that these theatrical performances of Guy Fawkes masks don't accomplish anything. I'm not dumping on people who went out and protested. I'm not dumping on people who protest. I am dumping on the form of protest that is being used that is known not to work. This is not an accomplishment. This is not, as a lot of people believe, it's a symbol of things to come. This is something that has been achieved. No, it is not. It is not a symbol of people starting to wake up. A real symbol of accomplishment, even through useless protests, a much better example would be with the Iraq War. Yes, millions of people, if maybe tens of millions of people, went out to protest the Iraq War. And while initially that appears to be nothing that hasn't happened before, I would like to note that this protesting took place before the war began. Well, there's always millions, even tens of millions of people protesting once a war has dragged on. But with the war in Iraq, those millions of people protesting took place before the war actually started. That is an accomplishment. That shows something new has happened. That shows that people's consciousness, at least on some level, have changed. This protest, the 5th of November, meant absolutely nothing. Now, I do hear that it might have meant something in the Philippines, that maybe this was a bigger deal in the Philippines. But I am referring to here in the West, here in the First World, and most of the Third World as well. It meant absolutely nothing. Nothing was achieved. No new phase or new substance has been produced, as I said, with the example of the Iraq War. I know people want to stand up and they want to say something. They want to tell their government we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. See, the problem is you keep taking it. You keep saying you're mad as hell and we're not going to take it, and then you keep taking it, which pretty much tells them that you're going to keep taking it. And you know why? A lot of this is indicative of what it is that people are doing. This guy right here, he was a Catholic fundamentalist terrorist. He was a religious nut job This is not a positive image. I don't care about this idea of the symbol has changed or the symbol means this. The 5th of November, to even use the exact day. It's dumb. This doesn't mean anything. You're just glorifying a religious extremist terrorist. To stand up and do this is to literally be more progressive than wearing a Guy Fawkes mask. This protest is just like all the others. Nothing was really said. There was no message actually being sent. In fact, that message was extremely convoluted. And not to mention the fact this was really still just another hipster thing. Take this one image as an example. Well, exactly what do we have here? Well, we have a Guy Fawkes mask on a rascal who's fat. Well, I couldn't come up with a better symbol for the first world than that. And next to him, we have a woman with a sign that says revolution, but has a picture of a heart for some reason, which I assume is that, we love thing, this revolution of love. And if we think nice things will happen. Way to be idealists and not materialists. And then next to her, we have a guy in a fedora. I think that says it all. I am being awfully hard and very critical on the people who did protests, and I do so because the protest was dumb. The protest didn't do anything. I mean, take a cue from the 1960s, analyze it from that perspective. This is nothing. And then when we did have this protest to tell power that we're not going to take it anymore, which I'm not even sure if that was the point. It was just a protest in general against abuse of power, which is really not specific enough. There needs to be an actual message. I'll take, for example, in Rochester, New York, where the protesters took megaphones and screamed death to the NWO, down with the New World Order. I don't think I really have to explain what's wrong with that. In other places, they were basically libertarians. That's not real capitalism. Replace capitalism with capitalism, and everything will be okay. I don't think I really have to explain what's wrong with that either. I sincerely hope the protesters didn't think these people were their allies or something. Or maybe these were the protesters. You see, we can't tell. That's kind of the problem with this whole situation. The reason why I express such frustration is the fact that nothing ever does happen. Nothing ever does change. I mean, we can go back and talk about Occupy Wall Street. We can bring up that whole situation again, and what was accomplished with that? Absolutely nothing. There was no leadership, there was no specific stated goals, because too many people were running around with different ideas. And let's not even speak about the Nazis who infiltrated the place just to cause problems. We have too many protesters without specific goals in mind. And there is some criticism that could be made of professional protesters whose daily life is to go out and protest. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but what it is they're doing. There's no coherent message being put out. It's just people shouting that they're angry, saying, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, when they clearly don't even understand what they are mad at, because their demands either don't exist, are extremely vague, or are just completely batshit nuts, like libertarians or the Alex Jones crowd. What we have to do is organize some kind of leadership, actually figure out what is wrong with the system, why it doesn't work, or perhaps come to the logical conclusion that the system is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. It is supposed to act this way. It is supposed to do what it's supposed to do. Now, I understand and I expect liberals to run out and do all kinds of stuff like this, these protest actions that are essentially meaningless. I get angry when I see Marxists doing it. I get angry when I see people who come from a philosophy that is designed to criticize the system, dialectical materialism, Marxism, Leninism. You know what's wrong with the system. You understand the theory. And then why would you behave like this? The liberals can run around and do whatever they want. The NWO crowd can run around and spout whatever nonsense they want to, and libertarians can go around as self-deluded as they want to be. But I expect better from Marxists. This is largely why I don't ever go to protests, because they won't do anything. And even if the protests do happen, the protests don't even have a message. The only thing the ruling class gets from these is, we are angry. Okay, we don't care because we're the ruling class and we have police that can come in and just beat the shit out of you. So what's the point? What is the point of using a means that you know doesn't work? What is the point of broadcasting a message when there's no message. You know, I'm tempted to quote the Canadian professor, "The medium is the message." Well, you see, that's very all well and good for television, but when you're protesting and when you're angry at the system for committing an injustice against you, and there are massive amounts of injustice that have been committed against the people, middle class and working class alike, primarily the working and poor class, but there have been real crimes committed against us. It's just when you cannot articulate that into a demand, why would you expect the ruling class to even listen to you? I mean, they're not going to do what you want anyway, but why would you expect them to listen to you? There has to be something, people. If you are going to protest, have a message and stop trying to vague the whole thing up to include as many people as possible. Lenin said peace, land, and bread, which was intended to include absolutely everybody, but at no point did he stand there and say, peace, land, and bread, just give it to us. No, he said peace, land, and bread, and die by the barrel of my gun and hand over state power. I'm not suggesting that people go out and demand state power by using violence, because that would be illegal and I would never do that. What I'm saying is, have a message and have a goal. We are all angry at something, and we all have a right to be angry at those things. The point is, we're not actually doing anything about it. And more importantly, we're not even adequately expressing what it is that we are mad at. Thank you for watching. Go ahead, rate, comment, subscribe, share on various social media. And if you want, there's some other great content here you could check out.